Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to our final Be Responsible presentation with Kristen Smith, and she can take it away.
Hi, good morning, ladies. Thank you so much for joining. I know that you all have finals and tons of schoolwork wrapping up before Christmas vacation, so thank you so much for joining. I see that we have Vivian and Skyla. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah, okay. Hi, ladies. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get started, but, and this is my first kind of webinar, I guess, on Zoom. So if you guys have any questions in the chat box, please just say question and I'll get to you whenever I see that. Is that okay? Okay, perfect. So as you know, the topic this year is be responsible. And life is constantly changing, and I wanted to kind of go over about taking responsibility, because as human beings, we have responsibilities to be humans, to complete our work, to show up on time, to actually stay committed to what we said that we would be a part of. But actually taking responsibility, because as humans, we make mistakes, tons of mistakes. And by owning those mistakes and learning from those mistakes is how you truly gain respect in this world. Because we're all going to mess up. We're all going to do things that we probably shouldn't have done. But the mere fact of, you know what, I know I messed up and I'm going to make it right. And I really, truly apologize. So owning your mistakes really, truly shows integrity, and it gains respect from others to you. So we're going to talk a little bit about taking responsibility. So any questions so far? No? Okay. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Kristen Smith. Zabin, I got married actually almost this time last year. We're celebrating our 1-year anniversary in a month, and it is crazy. Just a little bit of info this year. We all know this year's been kind of crazy, but I have to say we've been truly blessed during all of this. We got married in January. We closed on our first house that we bought together right after we got married. And then our honeymoon was going to start in Ireland for St. Patrick's Day. Well, I don't know if you remember, but the day of shutdown was March 15th. So our honeymoon was canceled. And so it was just a whirlwind. It was very insane. So anyways, we used that time to really fix up the house that we just bought, because we kind of bought a fixer-upper. And we fixed it up. And then houses started to go for sale in our area that had the same floor plan as us. And I started looking at the prices, and I'm like, I think we can make some money off of this. So long story short, we sold our house 6 months later. And we have moved into a new house with a bigger property and a bigger home, and a home that we can actually call home for hopefully forever. So kind of exciting. It's been really crazy. So anyways, that's a little bit about what's been going on this year. I also took on a new business that I'm really excited about. That launches next month as well. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff going on. So anyways, let's get back to taking responsibility. So I wanted to talk a little bit about social media, because as we know, social media is huge. When I was your age, social media was definitely not what it was today. And I don't think that a lot of people understand that once something is on the internet, it's on the internet. So no matter what type of posts you put up, no matter what type of picture you put up, it may seem innocent, it may seem fun in the moment, but that carries with you for the rest of your life. People are now looking at your social media platforms for job interviews. People are getting hired or fired because of their social media platforms. So we need to take responsibility in how we present ourselves on social media, because a lot of people, they look at your page to see who you are and what your personality is like and what kind of lifestyle you live. So you definitely want to show them a clean and healthy lifestyle, because that truly, social media, and I can't even imagine what it's going to be in the next 10 years. Social media is going to be huge, even bigger across the board in the next 10 years. So you definitely want to take responsibility in how you portray yourself on social media. You definitely want to give them the true version of yourself, but you definitely want to be responsible in your posting. You want to be very researched in your posting. So definitely, uh, definitely be cautious of what you put up on the internet. I have social media only because of my businesses. I am not a huge poster because it honestly freaks me out when people know more about my life than I even know about my life. So, but yeah, so I want to touch base on that. Is there any questions with social media posting? Questions on political, religion, any type of posting or pictures that you find that might be appropriate or not appropriate? Anything in regards to that? No? Okay. Okay, perfect. So, so I love working. I'm a big worker bee. So I wanted to definitely talk about the workplace. So we'll talk a little bit about management and also about being an employee under a manager. So in management, and this is something that I personally big time learned this year. So in management, you assume responsibility for your entire team. When someone messes up on your team, you take the hit for it. You are their manager. You are responsible for making sure that everything goes round and circle properly. And I'll tell you a little thing that happened to me this year. So, like I said, I started a new business. We're essentially selling medical devices that are delivered directly to your home for certain medical conditions. And we have ads that we were trying to start generating ads through newspapers because our demographic is in the slightly older demographic. And we were trying to get ad space in the newspapers. And I had 2 people on my dialer because whenever you see a number and you call it in, it goes into our dialer. And my partner said, "Hey, do we have anybody on the dialer right now?" Myself believed that my agents were still on the dialer. They were supposed to be on until 2:00. It was 1:30. I responded and I said, "Yes, I have 2 individuals on the dialer." I did not double check if they were actually still on the dialer. So I had multiple networks call in to make sure we had our dialer covered, and we did not have our dialer covered, and I lost our company thousands of dollars within seconds. And that was really hard on me because that was supposed to be the beginning of our launch. And it was my responsibility to micromanage and to make sure that they were actually doing what they were supposed to be doing. Because of that, I almost lost my part in the partnership because that was huge for us and we lost it. And because of that, it lost relationships with those networks still to this day, which is why we haven't been able to launch just yet. So I had to take responsibility for that. And that was a tough one to swallow, knowing how my mistake messed up the launch of our company. So, but big lesson learned, huge lesson learned. So whenever you're managing a team, it always falls on you. Now, when you're not managing a team and you're a part of the team, then what you do actually is what makes the company and what makes the work actually function. So the way I look at it, it's like a house. So the manager is the roof and they supervise over all of the employees, and the employees are the foundation. They're the beams that hold the house up. If one corner of that house goes over, the whole house crumbles. So it's about being a team player and taking responsibility for your job duties to make sure that everything is going around and that it's a well-oiled machine within the company that you're working for. So this is whether you are, under a manager or you're a manager, or even you are a manager that has a manager. It all goes together and working together and taking responsibilities for your physical responsibilities at that job site. So it's not just about, showing up 5 minutes early to work. It's not just about clocking in, and it really is about having just, the right mentality and to know when you are doing right and when you need to learn and whenever you make a mistake and how to learn from that and pick up and move on. So I've had companies in the past, but I've never actually managed teams before. So I've always done contracts. Like if I need something done, I contract something out. So I had never managed a team before. This was the very first time. So that was a huge learning lesson for me that I know I will never make that mistake again. But yes, it's about being a part of a team and enjoying what you're doing, but yes, taking responsibility for what your actions may cause, whether it be good or bad. So any questions about that at all? No? Okay. Perfect. Am I talking too fast? Is everything going okay? Okay, perfect. So the final part is taking responsibility in life. So in life, kind of what I touched about earlier, you can turn in your home. It's our natural ability to, know to be on time, know to be respectful, know to turn in your homework when it's supposed to be turned in. But you want to take responsibility for your own life. So we see so much turmoil around us all the time. So taking responsibility would look something like, what can I do to help that issue? So I have a nonprofit. It's called Retrain the Night. What we focus on, it's to deal with essentially rescuing trafficked victims on a much global, massive scale. So basically what was happening is, I'm sure plenty of you have heard about nonprofits that help rescue victims out of sex slavery, that help rehabilitate them and everything. All of those programs are so incredible, and they are so wonderful in helping rescue these victims. But the problem is that as long as there is a demand for these individuals, there will always be needing a supply, right? So business, I told you, worker bee, I love business. So business is all about supply and demand. You make something because there's a demand for it, right? So my business partner and I were talking one day, and she works with the federal government and it helps track sexual offenders and sees how they relapse and what causes them to relapse. So she works really closely in that department. And we're talking one day, and we both were like, rescuing these victims are a great thing, but I feel like it's just a Band-Aid. It's not actually fixing the physical problem. And the actual problem is that buying someone for sex is not a crime. It is I can't say it's not a crime, it's a misdemeanor, which a misdemeanor, it is a slap on the wrist. It might be a fine of $45, I think. A driving and texting ticket is $275, I think, and purchasing someone for sex is $45. And it doesn't really go on your record. I can't hear you.
I can't even believe that. That's insane.
Yes. Most people cannot even believe that. And because we don't think about stuff like that, we think, of course, that's immoral. Why wouldn't it be illegal? But it really is. It's just a slap on the wrist. So my partner and I, we got together and we're like, we need to actually figure out how we can make it a crime, for purchasing sex. So we tried to go on the state level. They didn't accept our proposal. And so what we did is we went to local law enforcement. So within Kern County in essentially Bakersfield, California, we went to the district attorney, we went to the public defenders, we went to multiple attorneys' offices, we went to probation, we went to the BPD, we went to sheriffs, and we got an endorsement from every single department. And so now I'm really excited to also announce that we have our very first client starting next month. And we are doing a virtual classroom. So basically what we are doing is, whenever someone gets caught in the act of purchasing sex or gets in trouble for whatever sexual act that they might be doing, they are going to be then referred to our program. And we have a 6-week program, and we have 2 teachers that are going to be working with all of the offenders and essentially go into the psyche of why they feel that this is okay. A lot of these buyers have been offended on themselves. They don't know the difference between what is okay and what isn't, because they have not been shown that growing up. So we dive into the psyche, to the history, to the knowledge of really what is going on inside their heads. So we're really excited about it, because that in turn will change generations. That in turn will bring, men and women back into their homes and back into a part of their family's lives. So we're really excited about that. It's a 6-week program for 1 night a week. and we have different guest speakers that come on. And I'm actually really excited because we actually have a former trafficker and a former trafficked victim that will also be speaking to our groups. So it's really cool how just everything is kind of coming together. But going back to taking responsibility, we saw a need. We saw that there was something that was helping, which I'm not downplaying those organizations in the slightest whatsoever. It is beautiful what all of them do in rescuing these victims. But we saw that as long as there is a need for this, one victim can get rescued and they're just going to take someone else to replace them, right? So we were like, how can we actually take down the need for this? And so that's how we're going with it. So hopefully we can get some statistics over the next year and present that to the state, and hopefully the feds one day to actually make this a crime to purchase sex. So, so yeah, whenever you see something out there, even with our homeless situation, especially in California, you know, even giving food to somebody to just brighten their day, even a smile, if you talk to them, people are just looking, especially during this quarantine time. I think it's showing more than ever that we need physical touch. We need human interaction. So even when you see someone in need, just a hug or a conversation, it makes them feel, wow, someone actually cares about me. And it's amazing how far that goes. And you never know. I moved to Vancouver, Canada right after high school. I was like, I want out of here. I just want to go do my own thing. And so I took off to Canada. Don't ask me why. I just thought it was a good idea. So I went to Canada, and I got on the bus, and because I didn't have a car when I moved up there, I just moved up there. And I got on the bus, and I had my coins in my little coin bag, and I put the coins in the toll, whatever. And I go to take a step, and the bus takes off, and I literally go, whoo, and I fell forward, and like all my change goes flying everywhere. And I'm like laying on the ground of this bus, and everyone's just looking at me. And I'm on my way to church, and I'm like, I'm not going to church. This is awful. I don't even know where I am. And so I get to church, and the pastor did a sermon on, you never know what anybody went through to get here today. And I'm sitting there like, preach it. I went through hell getting here. But just as an example, you never know what somebody's day is looking like. You never know what their day is looking like. Even if you're having a crummy day, your reflection of that crummy day can make someone else's day crummy. So by just being a positive influence and being a positive reaction to people in your daily lives, even on Zoom, even if you're doing Zoom interactions, being positive, that is physically, mentally taking responsibility for your influence on people that you interact and encounter in this life. So, so yeah, that, I just really want to touch on taking responsibility, because again, we know what our responsibilities are, but taking responsibility through the good and the bad, when you do right, when you do wrong. But by taking responsibility for all of those actions, you will gain respect, you will gain honor, and you will show absolute integrity. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Do you guys have any questions about the nonprofit? Do you have any questions about, yes, Vivian, go for it.
So I understand, and I really appreciate what the work you're doing in terms of getting litigation to make trafficking illegal, or at least having a much greater consequence than just paying a fine. But I guess my question is how did you make sure that while you were creating or getting people to endorse this certain type of legislation, that you weren't also harming actual sex workers who are doing sex work consensually, whether that is on platforms like OnlyFans, because for some people that's actually how they make their living. And I was just wondering how you guys made sure you were not harming the people who were actually consensually doing it.
So great question, Vivian. So first off, I wanted to let you know that over 73% of the people working out there are not out there by their own choice. So the people that are actually out there by their own choice is a very, very small amount, which if that is your choice to go out and make your living that way, that is 100% your choice. You have the freedom to do that. Now, people that are out there have you ever gone on a ride along or seen like how, you know, the streets work whenever people are selling themselves for sex? So have you ever done a ride along like that or anything like that, Vivian? Okay.
Yeah.
I really encourage you, if you have a nonprofit or a local organization that goes and does like a street reach of any sort, please go and check it out, because it definitely is a big eye opener. But a lot of times when someone is doing it amongst themselves and they want to do it, a lot of times they don't have a pimp. A lot of times they will do a mutual agreement and you guys meet up, whether it be at a home or a hotel. It's more of a private agreement, whereas trafficked victims, and I've seen plain in sight before, a lot of times what these pimps will do, or these traffickers will do, is that they'll get like a 2-story hotel. They'll stay at the top of the hotel and at the second floor, and they'll look down and they'll rent out about 4 or 5 rooms. And all the girls that are available at the time will stand in the door, and cars will just pull up and they'll go inside. And when you know the door is closed, and a lot of times that's a traffic situation. So basically, to answer your question, to make a law and work with legislation, sometimes it does affect the working class in this type of sense, but I don't believe it'll actually affect the working class that is actually doing this, because it is more of in a private setting. But also, let's just tap into this. I'm just going to go for it. By selling yourself and having multiple partners, it takes a piece from you, and it hurts. It's, a friend describes me as a cookie. So your heart's a cookie, and every time you have a separate partner, you give that cookie away, right? And eventually your heart cookie, there's nothing left to give. So, and I'm not trying to say that what they do is wrong, but maybe we can rehabilitate them and find them a position that they can work in society, to where they actually have a fulfilling job that doesn't hurt their heart and their soul. So maybe in the future, maybe we can come up with something that we can actually create programs for that. I can't say that it will never affect people that are out there willingly, but my main focus is really trying to save the 70+% that are out there, that are being taken from their homes, that are being kidnapped off the street, that are being drugged up. And, you know, that's what our focus is, to be honest with you.
All right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So jumping back earlier in the conversation, you talked about kind of that big dollar amount mistake that you had to own up to. And I guess, as I'm a little older than you participants, we've seen more like in management settings or employee settings where this is like a actual real thing. Like I worked in media, so it's a very normal thing. Like if you'll make a $30,000 mistake in 1 second, like one wrong button and you're there. So in the sense of taking responsibility, how did you get that courage and own up and be like, yes, I'm taking responsibility? Because I feel like that's a fine line. Like, you know, it's morally your responsibility, but like in that split second, I've seen people, they should have taken responsibility and they did not. So what did you kind of go through in your mindset to be like, no, I have to take responsibility. This is like on me kind of a deal.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of it was the mere fact that I was the only one that was fully responsible for this. It honestly, like, I could have thrown up, because it was probably anywhere between a $30,000 to $50,000 loss that happened with that company. So I literally felt like I was going to throw up, because again, I've never managed anything like this before, and my partners, they've done huge multi-million-dollar deals, and by the grace of God, they want me in on this. So to take responsibility for it, I did. I said, I didn't even make excuses. I said, you know what? I've never managed a team before. They told me they were going to be on till 2. They were not on till 2. That is my fault, because I did not double check with them to manage them. And I own it. I take full responsibility that my job is to micromanage. And I had to accept whatever the outcome was going to be because of this loss. But I didn't leave any excuse. I just said, look, I trusted them, and that's my fault. I should have checked before I text you back. I should have said, hold on, let me double check before I just said yes. So I did. I just, plain and simple, no room for even like argument. I messed up. So, and for me, that's the best way to go about it, because that it doesn't bring any added stress to you guys going back and forth and bantering. Because if I would have gone about it saying, they said they were going to be on, I don't know why they weren't. And then they're looking at me like, but you're supposed to be in charge of them. So why are you leaving it up to them? And I could have gone back and forth and kept trying to put the blame on them, but that would have gotten me absolutely nowhere. The fact that I am the manager, I have to make sure that they're doing their job, and I didn't. So just taking that responsibility and knowing that it was my fault in the end. So, and that's something that I'm learning, micromanaging. I don't like to micromanage because I feel like I'm mean when I do it, but sometimes you just have to micromanage and you have to be on top of people, because that is how it makes this well-oiled machine actually run. So yes, that is how I went about doing that.
That's awesome. I'm really glad you explained that. I feel like that comes up often in life where you see, I don't know, I was in a management position for a very long time. And I would see, I managed pretty much everyone your age, like 17, 18, 19-year-olds. And it was a lot of excuses. And that's when I would start losing respect for my employees. Just like, why can't you own up? Why can't you just be like, wow, Casey, I'm sorry. I messed up today. I'll be better tomorrow. It's a huge thing. And I'm so glad you touched on it, because I want you girls to really, I'm sure all of you girls know this, but it's a nice reiteration where you can really lose the respect of people by just simply not owning up to even the smallest of things. So I think that's great.
Absolutely.
And I love also what you said about just really responsibility for your actions, your disposition, the way you talk to people on the street, the people you meet. I think that's like the biggest step that a lot of people won't take. Oh, I'm on time for this, I'll do that. But just having responsibility for what you're putting out into the world is huge, especially right now. I think that's an amazing point.
Absolutely. And another thing to touch on. So if I would have handled that situation differently. So let me really preface this. My partners that I'm involved with have been extremely successful in their business endeavors that they've done. And again, I don't know why they brought me on it. I just, thank you, Jesus. But if I would have handled that any other way, I probably would have lost any potential of doing business with them in the future, because they would have been like, this person's not responsible. This person doesn't know how to own things. I would have gotten so much respect lost from these partners. But the fact that it was owned, we were able to literally, they were like, okay, well, you messed up. So let's figure out how we can do this. All right, let's brainstorm. Let me put together a proposal, how we can brainstorm, how we can make this better. So they saw, okay, she knows that she messed up. We know that she's new to this, but she knows that she messed up and she's not going to do it again. And she's going to make it, she's going to do anything she can to make it, to fix it. So if I would have gone about it in a different way, I would have probably been dropped as a partner and never had this opportunity with these individuals ever again. So because of the way it was handled, they're already talking to me about business in Dubai. They're talking to me about another business adventure like in New York. So I'm literally, because of the way that this is all going, it is opening up so many other doors. And I do truly believe it's because they know, even though I'm learning, I know how to own up to my stuff, and I'm doing the best that I physically can in the learning process that I'm taking on. So I know that really helped those relationships.
That's awesome. And I know you spoke at our workshops before on being ambitious. And I feel like that's where these two really intertwine. By taking responsibility for your actions, you're really able to conquer those be ambitious goals as people are taking you serious and get farther and farther into the world. So I think that's really awesome to see how that kind of connects. And go you for making deals. That's awesome.
It's fun. I'm not going to lie. It's quite terrifying at sometimes, because it's all things that I don't know about, products I don't know about, investments I don't know about. But it's so much fun to learn all of this, because you can't change and grow if you're not learning, and making mistakes. So this whole 2020 has honestly been a blessing because it has just been such a learning curve for a lot of us too, because we've had to adapt to this new way of communicating with people and this new way of finding happiness and fulfillment. So it's been a lot of growth and change, and it's hard, but it's a great thing in the end.
Oh, there we go. That's awesome. I could not agree more.
Absolutely. Did anybody have any questions at all? Business, nonprofit, volunteer work, anything like that?
I have a question.
Okay.
Kind of just building off what you were saying earlier about micromanaging, and you feel when you are managing people, you don't want to come off mean or rude, because I definitely feel that. I mean, just take the example of like school projects. When someone isn't doing their part in a school project, I don't want to come off rude or aggressive by saying, you know, you should do your work. So I guess just what piece of advice would you have when you're not managing, I guess, when you're doing a school project, but in situations like that, when you're managing people, but you don't want to come off overly aggressive or rude when you're just trying to make sure everyone's doing their job?
Great question. And I'm trying to think of an example to give you, because there are because you never want to belittle anybody. You never want to make them feel like they're not good enough, because they will not respond to that. As much as so many times in my life I've wanted to be like, what is wrong with you? You can't respond like that, because they sit back and they look at you, what's wrong with you? You know? So there's definitely a way to go about it, in a sense of, you know, if somebody, like for instance, on a school project is not doing their part, instead of saying, why haven't you done your part? You can say, you know, is there something you're confused about or have questions about that maybe I can help you with? So that, you know, if anything's not making sense, that this would make it easier for your part to be completed on the project. So instead of going in a sense of, again, what's wrong with you, but how about I help you? Is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything that that maybe isn't making sense to you as to why it's not allowing you to finish this part of your project, you know? And the same thing with any type of environment. You know, if somebody's doing something idiotic sometimes and you're just like, okay, can I ask why you decided to do it that way? A lot of times when you start with a question, it doesn't come off so aggressive. You know, instead of you know, going directly to them and be like, that was dumb, why'd you do that? So why'd you decide to do that? You know, the way that you approach it definitely will help, so that you're not so aggressive in the way, and then it doesn't make them feel like they're being belittled by you. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool, thanks.
I have more of like a comment about what she said earlier about how like people, like how she was managing people more of our age and how we don't really own up to our stuff, like own up to our problems or responsibilities. I think with this generation, or like with this specific age, I think a lot of kids, like, how do I say this? Not just come up with excuses, but I think they're just scared, if that makes any sense. I had to take a really big responsibility at a really young age in my life. And I know some kids are like that as well. And so for me, it's not very hard for me to own up to my mistakes, because I'll just be like, hey, this is what happened. Like for instance, my sophomore year, I accidentally broke a Chromebook. I have, I guess you could say, very hard hand, and I like slammed my Chromebook shut and I broke it. And I didn't realize it until I opened it. And my friends, I was already having problems with this teacher. And my friends were like, just leave it there, just leave it there. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I walked up to my teacher and I said, hey, this is what happened. I will pay for the expenses. I will take whatever punishment like given to me. I just wanted to let you know this is what happened. And I didn't do it on purpose. And my teacher did end up trying to get me suspended. But I had talked to my dean about it, and I have a clean record, and I'm not one to really get in trouble or anything like that. So me and her had agreed that I would work off the expenses and do like an intervention class, so like for the sake of my teacher, so he wouldn't be angry. So that's what I did. And going back from the school or student project, group project, I've had that happen with a lot of students. I used to be in like a GATE class, and I've gotten paired up with some, I guess you can say, kind of lazy kids. And like for our projects, I'd be like, hey, is there something going on? Do you need any help? Or is there something going on at home that's preventing you from doing this? Like, if anything, we can go meet up at my house. I can help you. And sometimes like there's no like reasoning. They'll just be like, I don't want to do it. And I'm one to not like be rude, but if I have to be stern, I will be stern. I'll tell them, hey, if I end up working on your part just because you don't want to, I will tell the teacher and I will take your credit and you will not get any credit. And that's usually what gets them working. They'll be like, wow, like you're rude. No, I'm not being rude. I'm taking my place. If you're not going to do anything, why should you get the whole credit? Like, why should you get any credit? So thinking back with our age, I think it's just a lot of, how do I explain? A lot of conflicts with a lot of students our age. I don't know how it is at your guys' school, but at my school, there's a lot of like childish kids, a lot of fights that break out. Like we've had about 7 fights break out in one day. Yeah. There's a lot of conflicts. Not a lot of students know how to talk out their problems or how to talk out situations like adults. And I don't think a lot of people our age realize that we're becoming adults. We're going to graduate. We're going to go to college. We're going to build a life for ourselves. How do you expect to build a life for yourself if you can't even deal with your own problems or take responsibility for your own actions? So that's just how I like visualize things.
And Shelby, you're a rarity for your generation, to be honest with you. And I know you already know that because I do believe, I think it's a generation, honestly, and I'm not saying this overall, but I do think it's a generation of somewhat lazy parents, to be honest with you, who don't actually pay attention to what their kids intaking, and they're leaving it up to social media and schooling to teach their kids on how to go about their daily lives. And it's probably because responsibilities and workloads have just gotten more and more heavy as the generations go on. So parents, like they're constantly on the go, they're doing stuff, and a lot of times they don't take a breath to say, what is my kid being taught? And a lot of times kids are just sitting there scrolling on their phones and they're getting lazier and lazier. And you're right, you're 100% right. They're afraid to get in trouble because they've never been managed by their parents or by like their teachers. Teachers are afraid to say certain things. Parents are afraid to say certain things. But what your generation is longing for is management. Your generation is longing for people to actually tell them what to do and how to be. And you're right. Sometimes you can't just be like, how can we go about this? Sometimes you have to be direct and say, look, if you're not going to do your part, then we're going to tell what percentage was worked on by who. And that's not necessarily being rude. That's being stern and honest. Like, hey, if you did 2%, I'm going to give the 98% credit to the rest of the team because this isn't fair. And even to go about that, at the end, you could just, when you give your presentation, you say, this part was done by so-and-so and this part was done by so-and-so. You don't even have to give percentages. You just say this was done by this, and this person. The teacher's going to notice, well, where's Shelby's name? I don't see that name on there. You know what I mean? So, and then in going back to your statement, your comment with your teacher, how he still wanted to get you suspended. Unfortunately, even when you do the right thing, sometimes you're dealing with a very immature individual, no matter what their age is. And you are always going to run in with people who have chips on their shoulder. And you have no reason, there could be absolutely no explanation as to why. Trust me, I had my very fair share of run-ins in my school with my teachers. You sound like a great student. I was not a great student, so I know the reasoning for my run-ins with my teachers. But you are, no matter how mature you handle yourself, you're always going to encounter immature individuals. So, and then you did the right thing. You went to your dean and you said, hey, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And you still got punished. You still had to make up for the wrong that you did, but at least you actually got to make up for what you did. And then you went to your dean and you showed integrity and said, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I told my teacher. This is what the after effect is, but I want to do everything I can to work this off. And the dean gained a lot of respect for you in that moment, knowing, wow, I don't hear this from many other students. Let's see how we can make this work. So you went about it in the exact right way. But what your example is a perfect example of how even if we do the right thing, it doesn't always come out with the greatest outcome because we never know who we're dealing with, you know? So, but I think just continue on with your maturity, and you already seem to express great leadership. So just keep on doing that. And that's great that you take responsibility for that. Any other questions? Ashley?
Hi.
Hi,
Sorry, I'm so
background.
late. Oh, thank you. I had like another meeting and it like went so long. Sorry, I'm so late.
No, that's okay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Did you have a question?
Um, Not really. I don't know what you guys talked about. Can you give me a really quick recap?
Recap. So we talked about taking responsibility, what you post on social media. Once it's up, it's up. Taking responsibility in your workplace, whether in management or as a managed employee, because everyone does their part in owning your responsibility and taking responsibility for what your actions are in the workplace. And then also taking responsibility in your life. What do we talk about? It's natural to know to be on time. It's natural to know to do your best, but when you mess up, to still take responsibility for that mess up and see how you can make things better.
Sounds good. I think I got it. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I have any questions about that, but thank you for recapping the meeting for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we talked a little bit about my nonprofit, about how we saw a need for that, and we took responsibility in taking a different approach to rescuing victims of human trafficking out by the masses too. So I do believe, Casey, you're going to send out the recording for this.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, this will be available on the online resource where all of the recordings are available. I think what an amazing presentation, I just have to say. And I think what ties it so beautifully is it's really, like you said, at every step, just what can you do to take that responsibility in your life, how you're affecting others, what you're doing in your world, how you're feeling in the world around you. I think that's great. Just taking responsibility for your actions. Step one look at where it's gotten you, all kinds of amazing things. So I think that's the lesson to be learned here, right? And I mean, it's also great, as we've discussed in your different situations, girls, you know, by you all taking responsibility, you are being an example for others, and hopefully that will kind of ripple effect, and then they will start, you know, taking responsibility for themselves too. So I think that's a great point. Does anyone have any other questions?
Actually, I was wondering, what is your nonprofit like about? I know this is probably redundant, but do you mind talking a little bit about it?
No, that's okay. So I have a nonprofit. It's called Retrain the Night. You guys can check it out online. It's retrainthenight.org. And so basically what we did is that my partner and I, we saw a need. So there's tons of organizations out there that help rescue victims one by one, you know, that are in human trafficking. And so what we did is we worked with local law enforcement to actually have the buyers be referred to our 6-week program to help rehabilitate the buyers, because as long as there's a demand out there, there's going to be a supply of people for purchase. So if someone gets rescued, they're just going to take another individual to replace them, right? But if there's an actual punishment to the crime, or an actual responsibility that has to be taken to your crime, then maybe they'll be less likely to reoffend out there. So I'll give you a little bit of statistics. So a person being sold into sex slavery can be sold up to 42 times a day. Yeah, let that number sink in. It's awful. So 42 times a day, and a purchaser can purchase up to 9 times a day. So the way I look at it is I can have 8 people in my classroom that have been caught for this. 8 people times 9, right? Because they can buy up to 9 times. That's how many times that we have rescued victims. So that's the way we approached our numbers, because as long as, and then those 8 people will be less likely to go out and reoffend, because they're like, I don't want to go through that program again, or they're going to say, I don't want to go to jail because my next offense is jail time, or they're going to say, wow, that actually opened my eyes, and now I understand that I'm probably not purchasing someone who wants to be out there. So that's kind of the approach that we took. We took it more on a numbers game, to be honest with you, because, you know, I was actually mentoring with a trafficked victim once, and she told me that her trafficker told her one time that she is replaceable, that she is of no value, and that she is replaceable. And in my head, I'm not very emotional. So in my head, I'm thinking, I didn't say this out loud, but in my head, I'm like, well, you are, because she is. If she gets rescued, they're going to replace her. She is essentially replaceable. Not saying she's not valuable. He was trying to relay that to her, that she wasn't valuable, and that's why she was replaceable. But the fact is, she is replaceable in the sense of they don't actually physically need her. They can go get somebody else. So when that triggered something in me, and I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, you are. And it made me realize, gosh, she was rescued, but they just kidnapped somebody else to replace her, because they want their bottom dollar, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. You don't think they're just going to go replace her? So that's what we took it as. We took it as, okay, well, there needs to be an actual crime to this. There needs to be a rehabilitation phase. There needs to be education on this. And so that's what our 6-week program does, is that we educate, we rehabilitate, and we actually try to build relationships with these individuals to see why they offend and why they go out there and do it. And again, I touched on this earlier. A lot of these offenders have been offended on. So they are not being shown real love growing up. So they don't know what real love is, and they don't know what use and abuse is. So we try to dive into the psyche of that as well. So that's what our nonprofit does.
Wow. I've never heard of an organization approach the problem in that way. So I think that's really awesome.
Thank you. It's not being done yet. So it is being done in a couple of cities on a very small scale. So a lot of these programs are a day program that are like, I think 4 hours long, and ours is 6 weeks. And so it's one night a week, and it's for, and the reason why we did it that way is because, in my opinion, you can't build a relationship with somebody in 4 hours. You just can't. You can't connect with them if you can't get to know them. You can't actually know their story in 4 hours. But if we actually cycle it over a couple of weeks, and it's going to be a pain for a lot of them in the beginning, but I think eventually they're going to actually look forward to the classes, because they're going to have a new relationship and someone that actually shows care for them, you know? So we really wanted to really focus on the relationship building part of it. And because a lot of these people haven't been shown love. So we wanted to go into that, dive into the psyche, and actually make it more of their responsibility to show up on time to these programs and be a part of these programs, because anybody can set aside a day for 4 hours, but to actually have to set aside a couple nights over the next course of a 2 months, that actually is a little bit more of a responsibility. So that's why we did that.
Right. I was wondering, are the offenders, is it only like sex trafficking, or is it also like labor trafficking, or is it just mainly focused on sex trafficking?
We definitely focus more on sex trafficking, but labor trafficking, I'm sure you know, is a very real thing. And I'll just give a little way of how to see if you're noticing labor trafficking. One of the big kind of in-your-face signs is when you see someone on the corner selling flowers or fruit or whatever. If there is not a vehicle parked next to them, they are most likely being labor trafficked, because they're being dropped off by their trafficker. So that's kind of that's one of like the first signs when you see someone out there without a physical truck. That is kind of like a first sign, like, oh, they might be labor trafficked. It's not 100%, but it is a big majority of people that are just being dropped off.
Wow.
And it's interesting. Now you're going to drive around the street, you're going to be driving, and you notice like the street vendors, who has a truck next to them and who doesn't.
Yeah, there's so many. Like, I see so many people on the street just selling those things. I didn't think of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions, Ashley?
Is there anything that we can do to, help with this nonprofit?
Definitely. So we are actually just in the process of starting to hand out pamphlets to lawyers to refer their clients. So if you guys want to, I can send you guys pamphlets. If you want to, now that, to be honest, we just are kicking this off. We just got our first client. So I'm going to know a little bit more in the next month of how we can utilize volunteers. So I have no problem, Casey, if you want to pass along my information to the girls, because I'll know more in a month what kind of volunteer work would look like for our nonprofit. But we are, I do know that we want brochures handed out to multiple, like, various attorneys' offices so that they can refer their clients to us. Because actually our first client was provided to us by an attorney. So, and it's great that even their attorneys see the significance in our program. So, because they don't have to require them to go to our program. These attorneys actually see, like, hey, these people need help. So, and then they see maybe the judge will have leniency, and, you know, there's a lot of different things that go about it. So it's actually pretty cool that we have attorneys that actually want to refer their clients to us.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for telling us about this. Actually, I was really interested when you told us that, like, the nonprofit was about human trafficking, because of this program, like, there was like a local seroptimist club, and they wanted me to help them with integrating a human trafficking program at my school. And so I was wondering, like, where I could learn more about it. And when I heard that you're having this nonprofit about it, I thought that was really, really cool.
Yes, absolutely. And you can reach out to me. Casey's going to pass along my information. You can totally reach out to me. I will give you any statistics that we have. Tiara, my business partner, and I can talk to you about integrating into schools, because actually once schools open back up, we want to actually start going into schools and teaching on human trafficking prevention, what signs to look out for, what, you know, predators look for online, etc. So definitely this is something that we could all work together and help and actually benefit from, you know.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something else about sex trafficking is, I don't know if you girls knew this, but it's been going on in Bakersfield for a pretty long time. And generally over time, it's getting worse. And I don't know if you guys probably seen, like, maybe the Instagram or Facebook posts where they put a zip tie on your car side view mirror, and that's them marking your car. Or they have people, like, they have men hiding underneath your car, and what they do is they slash your Achilles tendon so you cannot run from them, and they will take you for sex trafficking. So I don't know if you girls knew this. I'm a really cautious person. I'm always paranoid, only because my mom raised me to be that way. She always says, always watch out, watch your surroundings, make sure a man's not following you, which I have had men follow me before. Thankfully I'm able to get away, or I have my dog with me. But like, as for, like, something happening locally, like, just keep an eye on your surroundings. Like, always check your back seat, always check underneath your car, check your mirrors, see if someone put something on your car, anything like that, because you never know who it could happen to. I think there's someone here in my town that actually has been missing for a pretty long time, and they think that maybe the sex traffickers got her, or, like, she got kidnapped or anything like that. So it's really scary, especially for a lot of girls. I mean, boys are victims as well, but I don't think they're more common, if that makes any sense.
And yeah, great pieces of information. Definitely, you don't want to live in fear. So that's the number one thing you don't want to do, because look at 2020. We lived this entire year in fear, and look where it got us. So, and that's not just the pandemic, that's the way that we responded to the pandemic. So again, that's another way for us to take responsibility. But you don't want to live in fear. You don't want to be thinking that someone's going to get you over your shoulder every time. But it definitely is good to be cautious. I do agree. You definitely want to know your surroundings. Don't text while you're walking to your car. Don't text while you're in a parking lot. Don't text while you're in a parking garage. And don't sit in your car as soon as you get in there and start texting, because our cars don't automatically lock when we close the door. People are always watching. So you don't want to make yourself a victim. When traffickers are looking for weak individuals, and I'm sure all of you ladies seem very confident, and I'm sure we can all think of a couple people in our head that we know that just naturally look weak because they're unsure of themselves. So if you look confident, if you look like you're strong in yourself, you're not an easy target to them. They want someone who's vulnerable. They want someone who's got their head down in their phone, who's not paying attention whatsoever. They're looking for weak links. So don't be a weak link. So, and the way that trafficking goes about, they can approach it in any single way, but again, just know your surroundings. Don't look weak. You definitely want to have your head up, even whenever you're, I had a friend who anyways, even when you're walking down the street and you're passing someone, a lot of times we look down, right? Because we're like, hi, and we like walk past them. Every single time you pass someone on the sidewalk, look at them. Hi, how are you today? Because you have just now made face with them. If they had any idea that they were going to harm you in any way, they now know that you can pick them up out of a lineup. They're not going to do anything to you. So you definitely want to be very confident even when you're walking down the street, when you're passing by people. And on top of that, even if it's someone that doesn't want to bring you harm, by saying hello to a complete stranger, you might have just made their day. So it has two benefits to it. So always be paying attention to who you're passing and in your surroundings. And always if you're passing someone or if you're approaching someone, always look them square in the face and in the eyes, because then now they know, oh, she knows what I look like. So that's definitely some good information right there.
All right, everyone, we're kind of getting right around to the hour mark, and I know I promised everyone I'd keep these right in an hour. So is there any last closing thoughts you want to add? I think this has been an amazing presentation to wrap up our year here. Anyone have anything? Kristen, do you want to add anything?
I don't think so. Just be the light and, be responsible, be the light. We're one person, but one person can make a really big difference in this world. So don't ever let anything hold you back, even your mistakes.
Awesome. Thank you. And then girls, I definitely will send out her information to you. And then I don't know, Kristen, if you want to send me maybe to like your the Retrain the Night website link and things like that, because I can send all of that and include it with the video as well. Just if anyone that way wants to, like Ashley wants to reach back out, I think that would be great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much for having me.
Thank
Bye,
you so
everyone. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.